Aloha Hawaii, this is Pokala Inui and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. Starting a little bit late, I'm sorry. I had a lot of adjustments to make in the studio here. We will be talking about a number of international issues. We've sort of laid off of those issues more recently, and I think there's a need for catching up. We've spoken about rail and Honolulu and some of the politics involved in those issues. So I was thinking of focusing in on what's happening in the international arena. There seems to be so much happening, major changes that are not seen as major changes happening in that international arena. But before getting into it, speaking from the behavioral health side of the matter, let me ask you if you've been feeling sad and depressed. And are you anxious, worried about the future, maybe feeling isolated and alone? You might be suffering from capitalism. Symptoms may include homelessness, unemployment, poverty, hunger, feelings of powerlessness, fear, apathy, boredom, cultural decay, loss of identity, extreme self-consciousness, loss of free speech, incarceration, suicidal tendencies, or death. Well, of course, if it is death, then I guess one could say you have been relieved of those symptoms of sadness and depression. I want to thank David for sending me that short blip about this behavioral health or mental health question. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. In the event you are inspired to call and submit what we sometimes call an intervention or just comments on some of the stuff that I will be speaking about. Telephone number again is 524-1080. You know, a while ago I may have already covered this matter, but I'll do it again because it now links up to yet another matter. The U.S. Treasury claimed that Iran and Al-Qaeda had a secret deal. Well, that claim is discredited, and this according to Gareth Porter. He had written back in May, the 10th of May. He says the U.S. Treasury Department's claim of a secret deal between Iran and Al-Qaeda, which had become a key argument by right-wing activists who support war against Iran or Iran, has been discredited by former intelligence officials in the wake of publications of documents from Osama bin Laden's files, revealing a high level of antagonism between Al-Qaeda and Iran. 3 former intelligence officials with experience on Near East and South Asia told IPS they regard Treasury's claim of a secret agreement between Iran and Al-Qaeda as false and misleading. That claim was presented in a way that suggested it was supported by intelligence. It now appears, however, to have been merely a propaganda line designed to support the Barack Obama administration's strategy of diplomatic coercion of Iran. I'm going to stop at this point and by stepping back, taking a larger view of how the United States have been treating Iran, and especially this connection with Al-Qaeda. You may recall that prior to the invasion into Iraq, how there was a lot of right-wing proponents saying that Iraq was filled with Al-Qaeda cells and that Saddam Hussein had allowed Al-Qaeda to come in and operate there. And that was part of the build-up to allow the attack into Iraq. Of course, later on it was found absolutely false. It was a creation of propaganda by the American machine to allow or to support the attack into Iraq. They found that Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden and those people who made decisions in Al-Qaeda simply didn't get along together. They didn't see the Muslim faith eye to eye, and they were actually antagonistic to one another. Well, here again, we find that now the Treasury Department getting in and trying to participate in this right-wing effort to discredit Iran. Now, just prior to this weekend, it was discovered, or it was promoted, or it had been promoted previously, that Iran was attempting to sabotage the United States system of computers. And by sabotaging the U.S. system of computers, they were attempting to, cyber attack the United States, using that method to attack the United States. That too has also been found to be absolutely false. And instead, the opposite appears to have been true, that it is the United States who have been attempting to create this cyber attack upon Iranian computer systems, Iranian governmental computer systems. One way of doing it is to pretend the loss of these thumb drives. You can scatter them in parking lots or other places. A thumb drive is seen by many people as something very precious, and you do not want to lose your thumb drive because you can contain so much of your records and files on that thumb drive. And if you find someone's thumb drive, you would, as a good person would, try to return the thumb drive to the person who has lost it. But how do you find the owner of a thumb drive when you have no initials, no name, no telephone number on the thumb drive? If found, please call so-and-so. One way of doing it is by inserting the thumb drive into your computer and reading the files to see if you can get any indication of who the owner may be. Just like finding a telephone, you may want to look into the directory and perhaps even call an individual in the directory to say that I have found someone's phone, their telephone number, or your telephone number is in that telephone, and in that way try to close in on who the owner of that telephone may be. Well, a thumb drive may operate in the same way, but what happens is that for espionage purpose, what people will do is they will code in the thumb drive certain viruses, so that by sticking the thumb drive into your computer, the special code will begin to download your files into the thumb drive and transmit the files to a receiving entity, and that way stealing what is contained in your computer. Or it may introduce other programs within your computer, which then goes out and spreads into other computers connected to the system that you may be operating from. That is one way of conducting this espionage, or conducting this essentially destructive attempt, or the attempt to destroy an enemy's or an opponent's computer system. The United States have been found to have participated in this practice, and it's quite contrary when one listens to the U.S. suggesting that the Iranians are practicing this system of cyber espionage, while in reality we find that it is the United States who have been conducting these cyber espionage against Iran. Again, if we step back and take a look at what is really happening, and you look at the United States position with regards to Iran, it keeps telling Iran that we will continue to apply these economic sanctions against Iran until you stop the intent of creating a nuclear weapon. The Iranians have said, we have no intent to create a nuclear weapon. Where is the proof? There is no proof that we are even attempting to do it. And the U.S. is saying, well, we believe that you are, and until you convince us otherwise, we will continue to engage in the sanctions. Now, behind the United States is IPEC in the United States and is Israel in international affairs, pressing the United States to put this pressure on Iran. And so, in essence, the United States is the lapdog, the spokesperson or the tail that is being wagged by Israel. So, in terms of Iran, the United States is a voice for Israel, trying to press Iran to not even to what is the word for it, to eliminate its efforts to obtain nuclear weapons, but just to oppress the Iranian regime, and in the end attempting to get change in the regime. Now the United States has been following this pattern of regime change against Iran as well as against many other nations. You look at what they did in Afghanistan, look at what they did in Iraq. Essentially, the theme behind that was to change regimes so that they become more favorable to the United States. And this has been a common practice for the United States in Central and South America, in Asia, and in many other places, including, of course, the Pacific, especially here in Hawaii, where the first regime change policy was carried out against Queen Liliuokalani, establishing a foreign government, a government more favorable to the United States, and then coming in and eventually occupying, colonizing, taking over Hawaii, and using Hawaii to carry out the U.S. Desires in the Pacific. So the patterns remain the same, although the actors themselves may change, and at times they give us a sense that there's going to be a more reasonable, more appropriate, more peaceful approach. But we have not really found that more peaceful approach in all these years. I would suggest in the last 100 years, not on a long-term basis. That's my assessment of the situation, and perhaps it's expanding it larger than the story of the the secret deal that the Treasury Department was suggesting. But we can get further into that discussion. We just had a telephone caller, and that line has been dropped. Let me say to the caller that if you would like, call back again. We'll put you on the air and see what you have to say with regards to these things. Okay, here we go. Our telephone number here is 524-1080. Aloha, caller. Welcome to the program.
Hello?
Yes, hello, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. I dialed the wrong number.
I think you did, if you're sorry. Goodbye. And, all right, so getting back to our subject, let's see, there's some other discussions with regards to Iran. I'm picking on the subject of Iran because that's the major area or arena where the saber rattling is now occurring. And the next one is that the U.S. hardline in failed Iran talks are driven by Israel. I've already mentioned that briefly. Let's read just some of the initial articles or initial paragraphs. Gareth Porter says negotiations between Iran and the United States and other members of the P5+1 group in Baghdad ended in fundamental disagreement Thursday over the position of the P5+1 offering no relief from sanctions against Iran. The two sides agreed to meet again in Moscow, June 18 and 19, but only after Iran had threatened not to schedule another meeting because the P5+1 had originally failed to respond properly to its 5-point plan. The prospects for agreement are not likely to improve before that meeting, however, mainly because of an inflexible U.S. diplomatic posture that reflects President Barack Obama's need to bow to the demands of Israel and the U.S. Congress on Iranian policy. The U.S. hardline in the Baghdad talks and the failure to set the stage for an early agreement with Iran means that Iran will not only increase but accelerate its accumulation of 20% enriched uranium, which has been the ostensible reason for wanting to get Iran to the negotiating table quickly. Iran's enrichment to 20%, which Tehran has justified over the past 2 years as needed by its Tehran research reactor to produce medical isotopes, can be turned into high enriched uranium more quickly than the 3.5% enriched uranium for Iran's nuclear power program. But although Iran has let it be known that it is open to making a deal to end its 20% enrichment and even to let go of its stockpile if offered the right incentives, the Obama administration has opted not to go for such a deal by refusing to offer any corresponding reduction in sanctions. I'm not going to read the rest of the article. The article is written by Garrett Porter, and it comes to me through the Interpress Service News, and the article is headlined U.S. Hardline in Failed Iran Talks Driven by Israel, essentially saying that Israel is behind all of this, and to a certain extent Barack Obama himself is locked into this position because IPEC has funded so much and has influenced so much both houses of the U.S. Congress that Obama cannot get anything else out of the Congress than the hard position now being taken. So what do you have? You have a handful of very rich Jews who are accumulating their wealth in IPEC, and they are participating in the sponsorship of politicians, especially when the Supreme Court has released all constraints, it seems, over contributions by corporations, so that money is all over the place. The campaigns are going strong, and this IPEC, this Jewish consortium of contributions, are determining the foreign policy of the United States with regards to Iran. If you really look at what is that policy with regards to Iran, you'll find that it simply does not make sense. If you use a standard of establishing a guideline or establishing behavior conduct and applying it across the board, and then looking at how it is applied to the United States, how it is applied to Israel, how it is applied to Iran, and you will find that as it is applied to Iran, it's absolutely discriminatory. It is not the same standard that is used by the United States against itself or against Israel. The United States and Israel continue to violate all of these standards. They continue to possess and continue to improve their nuclear weapons stockpile, while on the other hand they are saying that Iran is prohibited and should be prohibited from gaining any nuclear weapons themselves. Iran is a member of the IAEA. The United States and Israel are not members of the IAEA. So even there you have the demand that Iran abide by some agreement with the IAEA, while the United States and Israel are not even members of this organization. So it's hypocrisy all across the board against Iran. So there you have it. Okay, if you would like to call, share a thought on this matter, our telephone number here is 524-1080. Let me take a moment and play some music, and then we'll go to other matters in the international arena.
Kaulannan apua hope o ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anunu me ka paka Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano Pa'apu me ke one o ka kuhi hewa Aolea e kau I ka pulima Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi Po o hui ai nā ku ai hewa I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka Aole makoa e mina mina I ka pu'u kala o ke au puni Ua lava